Coming up, today we're going back to the 80s for a countdown in style. You're going to love this. See if you can guess the year. Raiders of the Lost Ark ruled the box office, and Donkey Kong dominated the arcades, and the best songs missed the charts, I'm telling you. We got some crazy stories behind some classics coming up, like the guitar genius who was so fed up with his band's frontman, he started sneaking into the studio in the middle of the night to overdub new parts onto songs that they'd already recorded. He was sneaking his parts in. Or how about the lead singer who was driven insane by his perfectionist producer who made him sing 2 words over and over and over again for 45 straight minutes, hundreds of takes. So he got so drunk he puked his guts out, and then he nailed it. Then there was the classic song that came from a legend getting banned from the Alamo for 12 years for urinating on it. Plus the music video that was made for adult channels that made a band legendary. And then there was the classic that came when a band dropped one letter from the song title, and the greatest song in history never to chart. I know you'll agree with me. Coming up next, I'm Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember this commercial.
No little cinnamon gum freshens breath longer than Big Red. So kiss a little longer.
You're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. I know you'll dig something on this channel for sure. All right, for today's episode, we are rewinding back to the year 1981, if you guessed it, and we're counting down the top 10 songs, top 10 from that year that never broke into the top 40 on the Billboard Hot 100. There's no doubt that they should have. You're going to see what I mean coming up. These are anthems that lit up rock radio, they packed arenas, and they've sparked legends. Every bit as good, if not better, than the biggest hits of the year. Born from midnight studio heists, perfectionist producers, band videos, real cannon fire, and dance floor epiphanies in neon nightclubs. Chart rules may have kept them out, but history has locked them down as some of rock's greatest. Let's get into it. So coming in at number 10 is Def Leppard with one of their best power ballads, Bringing on the Heartbreak. Now, producer Robert John Mutt Lange had just taken the helm in 1981, and his perfectionism nearly broke the band before they even broke out. If you know anything about Mutt Lange, I mean, that comes as no surprise. He's a perfectionist. At Battery Studios in London, Mutt Lange put them through the ringer. I mean, at one point, he made lead singer Joe Elliot do repeated takes of just 2 words for like 45 minutes straight. In the end, it was hundreds of takes of just 2 words. Joe Elliot thought that Lange was effing mad, is what he said, and he stormed out of the session. Elliot wandered next door to Whitesnake's studio, where David Coverdale poured brandy and gave him a pep talk, and Joe reportedly got so hammered he was later puking his guts out in the street. But Joe returned the next day, hungover, but he was renewed, and he nailed it. It shocked Def Leppard manager Peter Mensch, who said, "Is that my frickin' singer?" Except he said the other thing. But then Joe later said, "If this is what working with Mutt Lange can do for me, I'll put up with the pain." He knew it. Yet even with all the work put in, the album High and Dry, it under-delivered on the charts. Both the album's singles, Let It Go and Bringing on the Heartbreak, failed to break into the Billboard Hot 100. However, Heartbreak would later get a second chance thanks to MTV. When MTV went on the air in August of 1981, the network was starving for rock videos, as we all know, and Def Leppard had one. The video for Bringing on the Heartbreak became one of the first hard rock videos played on the channel. They played it incessantly. And nearly 8 months after the album's release, MTV put it into heavy rotation. And by the run-up to Pyromania in early '83, U.S. sales of High and Dry had swelled from just 250,000 to almost 1 million. Mercury reissued the album in May of '84 with a synth-heavy remix of Bringing on the Heartbreak. That one reached number 61 on the Hot 100, but still shy of the top 40. But the fuse was lit, and it's become a classic rock staple. All right, next up at number 9, I've got the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, with Flying High Again. Ozzy has never been shy about his demons when he was alive, and in 1981's Flying High Again, he basically flaunted them. Written during the Diary of a Madman sessions, the song was a tongue-in-cheek anthem about his drug years. Ozzy's descent into depravity hit overdrive in 1979 when his substance abuse had grown so extreme, even Black Sabbath kicked him out of the band. I mean, if you're getting kicked out of Black Sabbath for partying too hard, that's some next level shiz, right? Ozzy responded in typical Madman fashion, though, barricading himself in a hotel suite for 3 months on a non-stop bender. During this self-imposed exile, tales emerged of Ozzy wandering the hotel corridors without any clothes, babbling to himself, and appearing completely untethered from reality. In the early 80s, Ozzy continued to one-up himself with insane antics. Of course, he chomped the head off a bat that a fan tossed on stage. That's another story. He assumed it was a rubber toy. That's been urban legend forever. And then just weeks after that, Oz was arrested in Texas for, get this, urinating on the Alamo while wearing one of Sharon's dresses. The offense earned him a 10 or 12-year ban, depending on the news story, from San Antonio. Each incident helped lock down Ozzy's rep as rock's ultimate loose cannon. The man was flying high in more ways than one, and the song perfectly captured this whole vibe. Commercially, Flying High Again was a modest success. It peaked at number 67 on the Hot 100. Didn't crack the top 40 because, well, Ozzy wasn't a pop hit maker. Mainstream radio programmers were hesitant to put a song celebrating, all the stuff I've just mentioned into heavy rotation. But man, Flying High Again was a staple on rock radio. It went all the way to the number 2 position, the bridesmaid position. It was held out at number 1 by Centerfold by Jay Giles' band, which was a massive hit. I mean, just the fact that Flying High Again made it onto the Hot 100 at all, it showed how much momentum Ozzy's solo career already gaining at that point. All right, in at number 8, we have the Countdown's only one-hit wonder. Actually, it's a no-hit wonder. Lunatic Fringe by Canadian band Red Rider. I should clarify, Red Rider was a no-hit wonder here in the US, but across the border they scored 6 top 40 hits and were big. They were big here. I mean, Lunatic Fringe became big. Even here in America on the rock charts, though, they had 7 top 40 hits. But by this Countdown's criteria, Red Rider, they threw a no-hitter. Good for baseball, but not for music. The closest they got was the single White Hot in 1980. In fact, Lunatic Fringe didn't even break into the Hot 100, but I would still argue it's their most iconic track. A little background on Red Rider here, we've covered him before, but the band formed in Toronto in 1975 and they added frontman Tom Cochrane to the group in 1978. Red Rider became well known on rock radio and Cochrane's songwriting was a huge reason why. Lunatic Fringe was from Red Rider's 1981 LP As Far As Siam. Cochrane wrote it in response to what he saw as an alarming resurgence of anti-Semitism in the 70s. The title refers to the extremist elements of society, and the song's lyrics call out hateful conspirators. In a twist of fate, Tom recorded the first demo of the song on December 8, 1980, the very night John Lennon was taken from us. The tragedy reinforced the song's message in Cochrane's mind. His record label had been skeptical. They told him Lunatic Fringe wasn't commercial enough, but Lennon's death galvanized Cochrane to release it anyway. Though it never entered the Hot 100 or the top 40, Lunatic Fringe did become a big hit on rock radio. It reached number 11 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock chart in late 81. Of course, more importantly, it gained a cult following through heavy airplay and pop culture placements. The song has been featured prominently in a lot of stuff. There was a 1985 film, Vision Quest. It was big there. Also an episode of Miami Vice. And over time, Lunatic Fringe became a staple of classic rock radio in the States, a stirring, slow-burning anthem that many listeners recognize, even if they can't name any other Red Rider songs. As for Tom Cochrane, after Red Rider went on hiatus, he finally broke into the Hot 100 top 40 as a solo artist. Do you guys remember this song? Life is a Highway. That one reached number 6 in 91, number 1 in other places. So I want to take a moment and mention today's sponsor. You know that one guy in the friend group who hit a crazy 5-leg parlay week 1 and wouldn't stop bragging about it the rest of the season? Yeah, that guy could be you with MyBookie. MyBookie makes it insanely easy to get in on the action. College ball, NFL, super contests, and survivor pools, you name it. All the spreads, player props, and in-game lines you could want all under one roof. And if you're new to MyBookie, you get a little extra juice. Check this out. Use our code ROCK, R-O-C-K, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your Bet Back bonus token. No better time to jump in, no better place to play. Football's back. Let's make some money with MyBookie. Coming in at the number 7 position on the countdown, it's the coolest band in rock history by about any standard. Talking about the Cars with Since You're Gone. After 2 smash hit albums in 78 and 79, the Cars subverted expectations with 1980's Panorama. The album veered into more experimental territory, moving off the upbeat power pop formula of its predecessors, which meant Panorama was met with resistance from listeners. It only managed 1 top 40 single, number 37's Touch and Go. The checkered flag cover art, that proved iconic, of course. As one review quipped, Panorama finished back in the pack. With 1981's Shake It Up, though, the Cars made a course correction, and they knew it. Said Rick Ocasek, yeah, the big return to pop, we threw them off with Panorama. They thought we were going insane at that point, and now we came back. Mid-America, they're going to be happy once again. But really, Shake It Up, they didn't need a drastic overhaul. Ocasek still wrote the songs, and Roy Baker continued as their producer. The album fused Panorama's experimentation with the radio-friendly spirit of their earlier hits, and the album's self-titled first single reached number 4 on the Hot 100. Shake it up. Shake it up. Still, it would be the album's only top 40 hit. Now, one song that missed the cut was Since You're Gone. Great song. It came up just short at number 41. Rick Ocasek wrote Since You're Gone as one of his most biting breakup songs, and critics at the time noted its caustic streak. Rolling Stone described it as a devastating putdown, pointing out how Ocasek skewers an ex with sarcasm and irony. But even his vocal delivery hints at mockery, as he deliberately mimicked Bob Dylan on certain lines, twisting words like treacherous. What makes the story sensational is how Ocasek could turn something deeply personal into sly pop art. His bandmates recalled that Rick often disguised vulnerability with wit, and Since You're Gone was a prime example of this. Aching lyrics wrapped in clever wordplay and delivered with deadpan irony as only Ocasek could. The Cars then amplified that tension with a surreal video that had Ocasek wandering through an apartment where everything was vanishing. The song may have stalled just shy of the top 40, but this one is an essential Cars track. All right, at number 6 is a band that would be at the forefront of the second British invasion and a paranoia not seen since the Beatles. Talking about Duran Duran and Girls on Film. Formed in 1978, by the early 80s, Duran Duran was already on the cusp of stardom. Their eponymous debut album would reach number 10 on the Billboard 200, and it would go platinum in the US, and they did it without a Hot 100 single, without a hit. A lot of people don't realize that, but if you think about it. That's not to say their singles were unsuccessful, though. Girls on Film was a killer song. Musically, the track was a 3-minute blast of new wave disco, and rock as well, driven by chic, funky bass lines from John Taylor and a sultry vocal from Simon Le Bon. Throw on the camera, click sound effects, and this one's a catchy 80s classic if there ever was one. And if you were to ask 100 people if Girls on Film was a hit, they would all have said, well, of course it was, even though it was a stiff on the charts. What made the song stick, though, more than anything, was its notorious music video, which brought to life its sly lyrical commentary on the glamour and exploitation. Determined to make a splash, Duran Duran teamed with directors Godley and Cream to create a clip that would push the envelope. more than pushed the envelope. Push it they did. The uncut video was essentially a mini X-rated film, replete with models not wearing any clothes, mud wrestling, and various risque vignettes. Filmed just weeks after MTV's launch, the band initially intended this night version of the video for late night club play and specialty adult channels. In broad daylight, it was way too hot for TV, and they of course knew it. As Nick Rhodes of Duran Duran later noted, they were a young band full of art school audacity, and nothing would get people talking like this scandalous video. And yeah, it worked. It worked big time. How else do you think that Duran Duran's debut got to number 10 and sold 1 million copies on the Billboard 200 without a hit single? Of course, the backlash came swiftly. Britain's BBC banned the uncut Girls on Film video outright, and even MTV in its infancy, starving for content, they balked at the racy footage. So, of course, the directors hastily prepared a heavily edited version, chopping out the most explicit scenes, the ones everybody wanted to see. What remained was tamer, but still, still provocative. It was controversial, and it fused more curiosity, and Girls on Film continued to make headlines. But in the end, Girls on Film didn't make it onto the Hot 100. It did reach number 24 on the U.S. dance charts, though. All of this was enough to lay the groundwork for an incredible future. Incredible success that would come very shortly after. Subsequently, Duran Duran's next album, Rio, completely blew up, breaking the band into the mainstream with the number 3 Hot 100 smash, Hungry Like the Wolf. All right, jetting in, halfway through the countdown at the number 5 spot, it's the man with the most recognizable sneer in history. Talking about Dancing With Myself by Billy Idol and Generation X. In the late 1970s, a young Billy Idol found himself mesmerized in a Tokyo nightclub. Amidst the neon lights and throbbing music, he watched Japanese club kids dancing with their own reflections in mirrored walls. The surreal scene, dancers literally dancing with themselves, that struck Billy Idol with inspiration. Of course, for decades, everyone has sworn that this song is about... We'll have to bleep that out. I'm sure it was, because I can't say that word on here. I guess we could say self-love. But its true genesis was that night in Japan with Billy Idol and bassist Tony James just marveling at the youth so enamored with the music that they didn't even need a partner to dance with. In that instant, Billy Idol knew he had the spark for a song. Back in England, Idol's band Generation X crafted Dancing With Myself as a defiant new wave anthem. They laid down a punchy guitar groove and shout-along chorus, bottling the same energy that Billy Idol witnessed in Japan. But when it was released as a single, it barely made a ripple. It peaked at number 62 in the UK chart, and it faded quickly. Generation X split soon after that, but by 1981, Idol's solo career was off to a sputtering start. But late one night in New York, Billy walked into a club and was stunned to hear Dancing With Myself booming from the speakers. He watched the crowd erupt with the same ecstatic reaction that he'd seen back in Tokyo. It was a magical moment for him, and he realized the track had the makings of a hit. Galvanized, Idol teamed with producer Keith Forsey to remix Dancing With Myself with a sleeker dance rock polish, amplifying its sing-along refrains. The revamped version was released on Billy Idol's 1981 Don't Stop EP, and it was also paired with a new music video that cast Billy Idol as a lone rebel partying atop a post-apocalyptic skyscraper. Almost overnight, Dancing With Myself became a staple in clubs and on MTV, introducing that Idol sneer and charisma to U.S. audiences. For all of its buzz, Dancing With Myself never became a mainstream chart hit. Are you crazy? It fared better in clubs and on pop radio. The song went to number 27 on Billboard's Dance Club chart in 81, but it didn't crack the Hot 100. Even a 1983 reissue of the single fell short of the big chart at number 102. Yet without it, we might not have gotten tracks like White Wedding or Rebel Yell. And Today Dancing With Myself was one of Billy's signature songs and a nostalgic gateway back to the early 80s. Here's what Billy Idol said about it.
I was a couple of hours early. I was just sitting there playing my guitar and I started to think about that title, Dancing With Myself. Or maybe I could use that, and then, because Tony used to write a lot of the lyrics in Generation X and I wrote the music. So by the time Tony got to the studio, I'd gone round E, A, and B a number of times and I'd come up with dancing with myself, and I said, Tone, I think I've got a bit of a tune.
Coming in number 4 on the top 40 missed countdown, it's the band that revitalized hard rock for good. Van Halen with one of my favorites, Mean Street. Okay, so by the early 80s, Van Halen was already riding high as rock gods in the making. They were 3 albums into their young career. There's Van Halen 2, and Women and Children First. To this point, they had placed only one top 40 single, though, Dance the Night Away. But for fans who were listening to what wasn't making it on pop radio, which makes a lot of us watching the show right now, Van Halen had so much to offer. You Really Got Me, Running with the Devil, Jamie's Crying, Ain't Talking About Love, and that's just from the first album. But going into their 4th LP, 1981's Fair Warning, creative tensions were taking a toll. Eddie Van Halen was ready to experiment in the studio and push it into more complex territory. But David Lee Roth, he was down with a more tried and true formula: party anthems and cover songs. Producer Ted Templeman was typically siding with DLR, Diamond Dave on this, but Eddie was a notorious perfectionist and a notorious innovator, and the Fair Warning sessions were starting to feel a little too familiar. He later called that period a dark time in his life, and he even contemplated quitting Van Halen. A lot of people don't realize that. But instead, he and engineer Don Landy came up with another plan. They began sneaking back into Sunset Sound studio after hours, after the rest of the band had gone home. Late into the night, Eddie would unleash every wild sonic idea in his head. These covert jams were then overdubbed onto existing material. Eddie's stealth sessions weren't discovered by the band or Templeman until they listened to the record later on. Fair Warning emerged as a dark, brooding beast. The band's meanest sounding album for sure, and leading the charge was Mean Street. The song opens with Eddie's dazzling tapping intro, and then the main riff hits, which is like a chainsaw tearing through the mix with Michael Anthony and Alex Van Halen driving a heavy groove. Just a great song. David Lee Roth is Roth altogether. He delivers a voice darker, though, than his usual playtime swagger here. Given its heavy edge, Mean Street was never a contender for a pop single, and it stayed an album cut in the U.S., though that didn't stop it from charting on the U.S. rock charts. It went to number 12. But Mean Street never needed a Hot 100 placement for validation. The song speaks for itself. Here's what bassist Michael Anthony said.
And that's, Eddie would do his tapping, and he just did this rhythmic thing on the guitar, because he was always around tapping, doing different stuff. And we'd be at rehearsal, and all of a sudden someone would go, "Hey, wow, that sounds cool what you're doing." Hey, play a little bit more of that. And then we end up sticking in a song, whether it's an intro or whatever.
Here we go. At the number 3 spot, we're saluting AC/DC, Thunder from Down Under, and their Back in Black follow-up. For those about to rock, we salute you. Which didn't sell anywhere near what Back in Black did. So while the band was recording in Paris on July 29, 1981, Angus Young caught the televised wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana. The ceremony featured a booming 21-gun salute, and Angus, he had a lightning bolt idea right then. What if they used cannons on their next song? Hell, they'd already used bagpipes and that big bell. Cannons, they were the next obvious choice, right? Well, the band embraced the idea, and for those about to rock, roared to life with artillery fire. The blasts were recorded in Paris with the Mobile One recording truck, mic'd carefully to capture the gut punch impact and the echoing boom. Producer Mutt Lange and engineer Tony Platt layered the cannon fire into the song's explosive finale. The result was pure rock warfare, an anthem punctuated by genuine firepower. But the song would have trouble blasting up in the pop charts. Coming off the success of Back in Black, AC/DC should have been riding high. But you know, their label, Atlantic, they blindsided them and released the Bon Scott-era album Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap in the U.S. And just months after dropping the new album. I mean, it was a huge mistake. The timing, it couldn't have been worse. Dirty Deeds briefly outsold the new record, completely muddying the waters for fans. Angus Young called it one of the worst money-driven decisions he'd ever seen in his career. The album's self-titled single, For Those About to Rock, it didn't break into the Hot 100 at all. And while stations that had embraced You Shook Me All Night Long and Back in Black that made those two top 40 hits, this one did not get the same love at all, and I don't get it. While For Those About to Rock did make it to number 4 on the mainstream rock charts, guess which song was right there with it? Yeah, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. That hit number 4 on the rock charts about a month later, stunting the prior song's momentum completely. But legacy outshines chart position. More than 4 decades later, fans are still awed by the cannon fire and still raise their fists and shout the chorus, For Those About to Rock, we salute you. It's so much bigger than its chart position, or lack thereof. Some songs, they're just not built for mainstream radio. Instead, they're built for eternity, and AC/DC's done that a lot. My pick for number 2 and number 1, it's going to blow your mind, they didn't make the charts, but here it is. We made it to number 2, it's a bridesmaid's position, and it's one of the best rock songs of the entire decade. It's Journey, with kind of a hidden gem from the epic 1981 album Escape, talking about Stone in Love. All right, so the story of the song begins at a party at guitarist Neil Sean's house in San Rafael, California. Neil was messing around with one of his guitars and a tape recorder, I guess. And the day after, he listened to what he'd recorded, and he heard a riff that he wanted to shape into a song. Now, he originally dubbed the track Stoned, S-T-O-N-E-D, Stoned in Love. However, Steve Perry and Jonathan Cain dropped the D. One letter. They dropped it and it became a classic. You know, when they crafted the lyrics, they came up with Stone in Love. Of course, this collaborative process was typical of Journey in their Escape era. Perry's knack for melody and Cain's sense of structure and Neil Sean's searing guitar riffs were the perfect combination. Stone in Love launches with a Neil Sean power chord, one of the greats of the 80s, and is soon joined by Steve Perry's countertenor. Those crazy nights I do. And the song's about summer love, of course. Those crazy nights I do remember in my youth. I do recall those were the best times most of all. Those were the best times most of all. It's the excitement of young summer love. Nothing better. This song captures it perfectly. Despite becoming a fan favorite, Stone in Love, it never cracked the Hot 100. It was released as Escape's final single in 1982, and it peaked at number 13 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. But that did not translate to pop radio. I don't understand it. The song's edgier sound resonated more with rock audiences than top 40 programmers who preferred Journey's ballads like Open Arms and Who's Crying Now. Both were huge hits for that album. I mean, even Don't Stop Believin' took many years to become a massive hit. But even without Hot 100 success, pop chart success, Stone in Love has endured as one of Journey's defining tracks. Check out what Neil told me about the song.
I put that together with Jonathan and then later Steve, but, I came up with, I had that part and then, I think Jonathan actually came with that. And then I had another. And I had it like a classical tune, that I was playing on just a little cassette machine. And he goes, well, I said, well, what can we do with that? He said, let's put it in that song.
right, for an honorable mention, I gotta throw in Depeche Mode's Just Can't Get Enough. This was their first real breakthrough. Of course, it's a bubbly synth-pop track penned by founding member Vince Clarke before he abruptly left the band. Its bright hooks and playful energy took it to number 8 in the UK. But here in the US, it didn't catch on in the same way. It reached number 26 on the Billboard Dance Club chart, but it failed to enter the Hot 100, though it's, of course, become a new wave classic and arguably Depeche Mode's signature 80s classic. So there's that.
And I just can't get enough, and I just can't get enough. You're like
All right, we're here, the number 1 song, and for this countdown, it is a no-brainer. It's a contender for the best rock song ever. It's a contender for the greatest song never to be a hit. I think it is. It's crazy. Rush with Tom Sawyer. Believe it or not, Tom Sawyer almost didn't make it onto their landmark album Moving Pictures, let alone the charts. It was because of some behind-the-scenes turmoil. During the making of the album, the Canadian trio faced technical breakdowns and creative roadblocks that almost shut this track down completely. Geddy Lee recalled that for the longest time, it was the worst song on the record. The trio struggled with it more than any other for the album. It just wasn't good. So I guess they were using a brand new computerized mixing console, which kept malfunctioning and causing all kinds of technical glitches. It was maddening for the band. Nothing was working right. Geddy Lee even thought, maybe we forget this song and just move on. I mean, crazy, right? The breakthrough, though, for Tom Sawyer came from a bit of unorthodox studio wizardry. Alex Lifeson was unhappy with every attempt at his guitar solo. It's just added to the band's mounting frustration. But in an aha moment, engineer Paul Northfield jumped into action with a wild idea. He'd mic'd up the studio's playback speakers and he recorded the guitar solo in a wide stereo spread instead of miking the amp in the usual way that they did. This clever technique gave Lifeson's solo a unique tubular echoing sound that suddenly brought the whole song to life. But even then, the final mix, it was a nail-biter. The computer system was so unreliable that all three members, they each took charge of different sections of the console to mix the song in real time. It was a big effort. But when the song was done, the relief, it was palpable. Their Problem Child track had become the best kind of monster out there. Tom Sawyer was released as a single in May of 1981. It peaked at number 24 in Canada. It only hit number 44 here on the Billboard Hot 100. What was wrong with people? It did reach number 8 on the US rock chart, but honestly, even that's way too low. Tom Sawyer is without a doubt a number 1 in our hearts track, which is why we're righting a wrong here and putting it at number 1 on today's countdown. It's one of the most played songs on classic rock radio. It's one of the greatest songs in rock history. It's the greatest song based on a book, and it's the greatest song never to chart. It's just, there's so many greats about it. And I'll tell you what, it's that one case where the song is better than the book. I mean, for sure here. That's an easy number 1 for me. So what do you think? What are your memories of these songs? What is your top 10 of 1981 of songs that didn't make it on the charts? Seriously, I would put these up against our 1981 chart, and I'll bet you 7 out of 10 of these would beat the rest of them. That would be an interesting thing to do. Maybe on a live stream, I'll do that sometime. But let us know your memories. Let's have a great discussion about 1981, about Rush, about Def Leppard, about Ozzy, about all of this. And make sure to leave us a comment about that. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.